Oregon had their spring game yesterday. What did we learn from the first game of the Dillon Gabriel era, the first game of the Dante Moore era, and year 3 of the Dan Lanning era? As we get that thing rolling, it was packed in Autzen from what we could tell from that broadcast copy, but spring for us is really for taking a temperature. You don't want to make any definitive statements on what a team's going to be just yet, but even so, man, I feel like there's a lot to take away from this spring game. So we'll get into it right now, but before we get to that, make sure you're subscribed. Oregon Duck fans, man, we've had a lot of y'all join this show, join this party here in the course of the last couple of months, and we're extremely grateful for it. Y'all love college football. You love your Ducks. Make sure you're subscribed if you're just now finding us because you're looking for something on the Oregon spring game. Because if you're looking for something on the Oregon spring game, you're a little bit of a sicko for college football. We're talking about the Oregon spring game less than 24 hours after it happened, so we're cut from the same cloth here. Make sure you're subscribed is the bottom line here. Also follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at JDPakel and interact with me on there. I'll start with this. I was thinking and watching the Oregon spring game yesterday. I was thinking about the Oregon roster overall and watching the spring game. And you can't help but chuckle a little bit when you look at that quarterback room, because it is still hilarious to me that in the same portal cycle, in the day and age of instant gratification in modern college football, Dan Lanning went out and got 2 of the top quarterbacks in that portal during the same window. It wasn't like they grabbed one guy last year and grabbed the other this year. It was like, no, in the same cycle, they landed Dillon Gabriel and Dante Moore. And I thought both showed all the promise in the world. Dillon Gabriel was 14 for 21 from the box score that I saw. I think with what he was in that spring game, it was just a jumping off point for what he's going to be in the fall. Still feels maybe like he is a half beat slow into what he's going to be long-term in this offense. But still, what I just said, 14 for 21, threw 2 touchdowns. You see how he fits in this offense. You do. He's a good decision maker. Ball gets out quick. Ball is going to get out even quicker when he gets more comfortable in this scheme and gets more comfortable in this offense. Once he gets faster in that regard, there's going to be a lot of big plays out there in Eugene. I promise you that. Physically, I think he brings everything that you had last year with Bo Nix. I think he brings all those qualities to the table. Good decision maker. Ball goes to the right place. He's just, was born to run the RPO offense, if we're just going to call a spade there. And also, he looked really under control. That's one of those things I was encouraged to see. Dillon Gabriel knew where to go with the football. Dillon Gabriel knew what he was doing within this offense. It's just a matter of, I think, removing that thinking component for him. And he said it after the game. He's like, spring game, how'd it go? It went. Saw some good, saw some bad, but overall, for your first outing to throw, I believe it was 2 touchdowns for Dillon Gabriel, hard to be too disappointed. You see the trajectory for him. You see where this thing is headed. You see how he fits. You see why he's going to be your starting quarterback, and the experience he has as a starting quarterback in college football, big-time college football, is going to pay dividends in the fall. I don't think they'll miss a beat offensively. Speaking of not missing a beat with Dante Moore, man, I think if he had to play this year, he could have played this year somewhere else. Like, how much of a luxury is that for you if you're Oregon? If the sky falls in and for some reason you don't have Dillon Gabriel, you got one of the top quarterbacks from the portal in Dante Moore, who also has game experience from his time at UCLA. After he gets a full year now to sit behind a DG and be able to go through another spring and be able to get more comfortable in this system, I don't think they're going to miss a beat after Dillon Gabriel leaves because of all the things he brings to the table from a physical standpoint. Was either quarterback perfect yesterday? No. Austin Novosad looked good too. Shouts Austin Novosad. But with that being said, 2 guys, first year in the system, they're going to be a lot better once we get to the fall. And I think Oregon will once again be extremely potent offensively. Another reason for that, you saw they got some real guys to get the ball to. Like that D2 transfer at running back, Jay Harris, was one of the names of the spring game, in my opinion. I think he's going to be awesome. I'll say this, and I've said this for a long time on this show, man. I'm a Jordan James stan. I am. I love the way he gets downhill. He gets north and south, quick, fast, and in a hurry. He makes the first guy miss more often than not and then keeps going and getting positive yards. I really like what he brings to the table. And him and Jay Harris together, I understand you lose an NFL guy in Bucky Irving, but even with that being the case, man, both those individuals I think will help aggregate the production you lost last year in a Bucky Irving. And I also think when you look at those guys, I don't think either of them stuffed the stat sheet necessarily when it came to what they did catching the football. Jay Harris got a touchdown and looked pretty smooth doing it. Jordan James, you see the ability to catch the football. I think it's there is what I want to make sure we say. I think it's there. I think with Bucky Irving catching, I think, north of 50 balls last year, they're going to be in good shape to replace that as well from the running back room, catching the football. Now, speaking of catching the football, Tez Johnson, surprise, surprise, he's going to be really good. Evan Stewart, still getting his feet underneath him out there in Eugene. He's going to be really good. You see why he was brought over. There was a play there where Dillon Gabriel goes down, I believe it was his right, so he's, as a lefty, throwing to the right sideline. And Evan Stewart at the front pylon battles with the DB. He and the corner are going back and forth. He hauls in a one-hander, and I thought he caught it and got in bounds, but obviously the referee thought otherwise. You saw the potential there. You see why that connection 8 to 7 is going to be a whole lot of fun. Evan Stewart, of course, wearing number 7 out there for the Ducks. Josh Connerly. We don't usually talk specific linemen during the spring game reactions, but we're going to with him. He's a dog. Okay, he's playing tackle for them. He's going to be, I believe, an all Big Ten caliber player this upcoming season. To me, Josh Connerly and the way that he plays football is a tremendous microcosm of Dan Lanning's attitude with this football team. They're going to be physical. They're going to impose their will. They're going to move the line of scrimmage, and they're going to make no apologies about it. That's Josh Connerly. That's what he did yesterday in the spring game. Defensively, staying in that same vein of an attitude and a certain way of doing things, they're going to build off of last year, which is encouraging. You got a lot of guys that were on last year's squad that get another year in the system. Jordan Birch, Mateo Uiagalelei, both those guys rushing the passer. They're going to be better. You add in a Jabbar Muhammad. He's going to bring something to that secondary. They have 70% of last year's production back on defense. That production allowed 17 points a game. I feel like we have a pretty good understanding as to who they're going to be on that side of the football, and who they're going to be is really good. Who they're going to be is, I believe, good enough to compete for a Big Ten championship. And that's kind of the way I want to address this thing as we move out of the spring game. Like, Oregon, as they move into the Big Ten, there's always question marks whenever you move conference to conference of who are they going to be? What is their new standing in their new conference? We're seeing it now in the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma, and we're talking about it with the other new Big Ten teams. Oregon has been a Big Ten team. Make no mistake about it. Oregon, even though that sticker has said Pac-12 on the helmet for a little bit of time here, they've been a Big Ten team, in my opinion, since Dan Lanning's got there. With the caliber of players they have up front, the way they play at the skill positions as well, the way that they operate from a just overall macro level, they are a Big Ten football team. There's no soft West Coast anything within them, okay? Not just because of who they have on the roster, but because of who their head coach is. All right, and I don't think we can discredit that. The importance of a year 3 team with a strong culture, strong way of doing things, strong operating system, the fact that you have standards, culture, and alignment across the board here, all up to par in Eugene. I understand you're still working with that. You're still tinkering that. You're still trying to take ground every single day. But the fact that that's now in year 3, I think that helps maximize what you have on this roster. What they have on that roster is more than enough to get it done and more than enough to compete for a Big Ten championship. And I think Oregon, just so we're on the same page, will do that. Ohio State gets a lot of buzz right now. They should. 100%. I've said my fair share about what I think Ohio State's going to be in 2024. I think they're going to be phenomenal. But Oregon has every single opportunity to win that conference, their first year there. Make no mistake about it. There's nothing on paper or on this staff that I believe would prohibit Oregon from being in that conversation or, quite frankly, being in that game. That includes schedule. That includes resources. That includes depth, all those things. Oregon is good enough, more than good enough to make a run at it this upcoming season, their first year in that new room, which is the Big Ten. So, let me know on Instagram and on Twitter how you felt about this game at JD Buckell. Also, subscribe to the channel one more time. We're talking about a spring game. You're watching a video about a spring game, so make sure to dial it in. Hey, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.